we have legislators. The legislature is starting Monday, and legislators have already been pre-filing their bills. And it's really important to know what you can do to help stop some of the bad bills. Now, just a little history on what's going on in the legislature. I had over there, too, this goal sheet. If some of you grabbed one. Why we're faced with all of these anti-gun bills, and I really thank you guys for being here, because I've been a Second Amendment advocate for well over 10 years, probably 15, and I could count on one hand 10 years ago the people I helped. And now to see more people involved is really great. But in 2018, in the state of Washington, the Democrats gained 12 seats in the legislature, and it put them at a clear majority. And then what they did at that moment in time, so if you are a Democrat, you got to hear this. What they did is they kicked out of the party all of the moderate, nice, gun-owning Democrat legislators that worked on both sides of the aisle. So they're gone, and they were replaced with progressives. And I just want to say, some people say my vote doesn't count. It does. We are 20 votes short in the House, and we are 11 votes short in the Senate. So every vote counts. We had a 33% turnout in this county in just the November election, which means 67% advocated the right to pick a good elected official over to the other side. So when you don't vote, that is also a vote that is given to the other side. So this year is going to be a major election year, and we all need to be on board to vote and to be informed about who to vote for. So I just wanted to give you a heads up of why we're sitting like we are now. It's not because necessarily now there is fraud going on before the ballots get to the election centers, but the election centers, most of them except King County, are pretty above board, and so that's not the problem. But when we don't vote, when nearly 70% of the people don't vote, we lose our voice. And so when we're going to the legislature, we're operating on defense mode. We need to get back into offense. So that's why I say the goal is we need 50% plus 5 Republicans, and then we can stop the onslaught of these unconstitutional bills. So that's a little bit about what's going on. I'll talk a little bit later on some volunteer things and what you can do. And there are a lot of people today that were not able to come. Yvonne Klein is the paid Washington State Director for the National Rifle Association. And she couldn't be here today, but she wanted to say that she's sorry she can't be here. If you save the date for February 19th, we're going to be talking in this room about the bills moving forward to the end of the session. Okay? So she'll be there hopefully then. And so she sadly can't be here, and she was going to talk about the bills. But William Kirk over here, which we had him come out and speak. You guys, who knows his YouTube channel? Yeah, so he so graciously offered to step up. We had him out here before he was famous, and then his YouTube channel took off. I can't say it was because of us, but he does an outstanding job discussing the bills and presenting them to you in a layman's term. Because I don't know about you guys, reading those 80 pages of gun laws sometimes can be a little bit overwhelming. So with that, we're going to talk about the bills moving forward. And so, Bill, if you want to come up and address those, we appreciate that. Let's give him a big hand. Yay!
Okay. And I know this is exactly how you guys want to spend a weeknight here. A lawyer talk and then a politician get up right afterwards. And so I appreciate you all being here. For those of you who subscribe to the channel, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. For those of you who don't subscribe to the channel, I mean, it's free legal advice. You know, you're not going to find any other lawyer dumb enough to do things for free. So sign on up. I'm going to run through the bills real quick. There's a couple other speakers. We're going to make this real simple. I will let you know that there are two bills that are pre-filed right now. There's one by Representative Jim Walsh. It's a good piece of legislation, so it will never get a committee hearing, I'm sure. I don't even remember the bill number. I might not even do a video on it, unfortunately, because this is the reality of where we are. We are on the defensive here in Olympia. That we can't, advance our own agenda until we start defeating their agenda and start winning elections again in this state. But it's a good piece of legislation because it would take any of your concealed carry license application data, or for those of you who will have to be going through pre-purchasing licensing and your training and all of that for your concealed carry license that will go into effect May 1st, 2027. That data, those information would also not be discoverable through Freedom of Information Act and public disclosure requests and things like that. So it's a good piece of legislation designed to protect firearm owners' privacy. Obviously, it's sponsored by Representative Walsh, so you know it's a good piece of legislation. I'll try to get a video out, but I'm not hopeful on that. The other bill that was pre-filed today is, I got my notes here, right? I should have never called Jane. I just called to find out what time this thing was going to be at. I was like, oh, by the way, so otherwise I would have been sitting in the back there. But the bill is, here we go, 2320, House Bill 2320. So if any of you are into 3D printing firearm parts, lower receivers, or anything like that, my advice to you would be hurry up and get it done now. Because this piece of legislation will make that activity illegal. It will also make possessing digital files to do that illegal, the transmission of it, the receipt of it. How any of this is going to be enforced, God only knows. It can't be. But this will, in fact, end 3D printing. For those of you, we've had a discussion about possible 3D printing of suppressors, which can go on right now. It's actually a cool little trick you can do with a Form 1. I'll stick around later if you guys want to learn the trick. It's totally legal, but that would come to an end as well. So that's the bill I want you to be careful with. And let's talk really about the carryover bills, because I always get a kick, as you know, at the end of certain legislative sessions. Everyone's like, yay, we killed the bill. No, you didn't. It's just gone into hibernation for a year, right? And that's what happened, because we're on that biennial session. So let me go over the bills and that you need to be aware of. This is the one that I think is just guaranteed to pass. It's House Bill 1386. It's an ammunition and firearms tax. Why do I think it's guaranteed to pass? Well, apparently those in control of this state have never passed a math class, because they certainly can't run our state from a financial standpoint. We know what a financial disaster this state is. There's no excuse for the state to be in the financial disaster it is, except for terrible leadership. So anything that has revenue attached to it is going to be, they'll be salivating over it. The opportunity to take an additional 11% tax from firearm sales, ammunition sales, firearm component sales above and beyond our already outrageous sales tax, it's too good for them to pass up. So that is House Bill 1386. Please be aware of House Bill 1152. That's a new safe storage provision. And this would be really a darn shame if they pass that, because candidly, as critical as I am of Washington gun laws, it's the whole reason I got the channel for it, actually. I actually think that Washington State has a pretty good safe storage law. I think if a state demands having a safe storage law, I actually think Washington's is a good model, because it doesn't actually mandate how you store a firearm. It just says that if you're an idiot about doing it and then bad things happen, you can be on the hook for that as well. Unfortunately, House Bill 1152, if enacted into law, would technically, if you chose to comply with the law, require you, if your firearm's not on your person at your home, to store it in such a manner that it no longer is an effective tool for self-defense, locked away, unloaded, things like that. Certainly, if that's the way you choose, because it's your own free will to store your firearms like that while you're at home, that's your prerogative. But to have the state mandate that, I think, is ridiculous. Be aware of House Bill 1132. I don't know if this one's going to go anywhere. This is what I call the Second Amendment quota. You get to buy one gun every 30 days. That'll save a lot of lives doing that too, by the way. Okay. Now, that exact law was passed in California. That exact law was struck down in California, and the Ninth Circuit did not flip that. Okay, the crazy Ninth Circuit actually said, no, that's a little too far for us. All right, so I don't think that bill's going to go anywhere. California, interestingly, now is going to try a 3 and 30, because the court said, well, 1 and 30 is not good, so maybe they think the quota for our Second Amendment rights lies a little bit higher. It's offensive. Think about it. How many of you go to church? every Sunday. I know there's some people here every Sunday. That's what you do, right? Can you imagine if they told you could only go to church once a month? I like to be free from unreasonable government searches and seizures, but what if it was only available to you on even number days? That's how offensive that legislation is. All right, 1504. This is the one that would have turned Washington gun law, the channel, into Idaho gun law. Because I would have gotten out of this state if this one becomes law. That's the mandatory insurance bill. Okay, and that would require a policy for each and every firearm you own, or of course, if you don't want to get the policies, you can just deposit a bond of $25,000 per firearm. Now, I understand that one's hit some skids, never really got out of committee, and I think the big deal is the insurance companies got all over the state legislature and said, you're going to mandate a policy that none of us write. We don't offer that policy, and we're not going to offer that policy because it doesn't pencil for an insurance company to do so. So I'm hopeful that we will never, ever talk about that one again. 5099, Senate Bill 5099, new rules for FFLs. This kind of expands on the really big, nasty bill that passed a couple of years ago that went into effect this July. What they're just trying to do with all these things by requiring more reporting, more training, more licensing, anything, is they're just adding to the cost of a business that right now is running on the same profit margin as an airline or a grocery store. Okay, if you understand business models, you understand that there are certain businesses that run on these very paper-thin business models. And what the Washington State Legislature did to the FFL industry a few years ago by taking away high-capacity magazines and then by removing the sale of assault weapons is if you all owned a grocery store and you had 10,000 square feet and your overhead was associated with that, and someone came in and said, hey, you got 15 aisles of stuff here, but you can only sell aisles 1 through 10 from here on out. That's what they did to the FFLs in this state. The cost of their operation went up. Their ability to earn money went down. Now, the Cabela's of the world and the Bass Pro Shops, they can handle it. Store in Tacoma there could lose money because the store in Arkansas is making $5 million a month. It's not a big deal. But those independently owned mom-and-pop operations, some of which have been serving rural communities for decades, some of which are the only gun store you got for 50 miles, right? They have run a lot of them out of business. I could go through a laundry list of FFLs. And so anything that's going to add more cumbersome regulations to the FFL industry is not going to save a single life because 88% of all gun crimes are committed by who? Somebody who's unlawfully possessing the firearm at the time the crime is committed, right? So it's not our gun stores. They're not the problem. Every gun that's ever walked out of a gun store walked out of there with the FBI approving that sale. So, all right. But I digress. Senate Bill 5098, new gun-free zones. This is a big issue du jour for all of those that are supporting civilian disarmament legislation. If we can't keep people from being licensed to possess a firearm, let's just create more places where they can't have it. This one would be all state buildings, all municipal buildings, all county fairs. That's probably a big deal here in Puyallup. Parks and places where children are present. I find this one the most offensive because the one place that you as a parent might actually need to most likely defend the life of your children, they actually want to disarm you in that. That's Senate Bill 5098. And then the other two that I want you just to be aware of, they don't exist right now, but here's the thing. Everyone always thinks like at Washington gun law, they're like, oh, they're still clairvoyant. We're not clairvoyant. I'm cheating. I'll tell you how I cheat. I look at what California did 2 years ago. Right? Because what California did a couple years ago, we're going to do here. Those that are supporting civilian disarmament legislation here in Washington State have never come up with a single creative thought yet. Not one. Everything is cut and pasted from legislation that comes from California, Illinois, New York, or Maryland. The other thing is ammo background checks. Because what's going to happen is that people are going, if they pass that ammunition tax, the smart consumer is going to look for all sorts of ways to go get ammunition without paying the additional 11% tax. And what they're going to do is they're going to try to create a system in which Washington State residents, much like California residents, actually have to go through background checks in order to purchase ammunition. A law which was just struck down by the Ninth Circuit, 3-judge panel, but accepted for review by an en banc panel of the Ninth Circuit. So expect that ruling to be flipped and then expect it to go to the Supreme Court, and we'll get an answer on that one in a dozen years. So that's your legislative update for right now. And as more things happen, this is the time of year where I start really getting back into what Washington Gun Law first started as, which is a channel that was really for the lawful, responsible gun owner here in Washington State. I will keep you posted on every piece of legislation that's coming out. I will tell you what's going on. And the last thing I want to end with here, real quick, and then I'll let you get on. Okay? It doesn't matter. I hear this all the time too. It doesn't matter. My vote doesn't matter. Okay. Well, right now, the people on the other side, they think that already. They think your vote doesn't matter. So you're just going to perpetuate that crap for them? And here's what I got to say. My family got to this state in 1883. The very first Kirk to actually come to the United States came to Washington State after he served in the Civil War for the Union Army. They gave him 40 acres of land. That was the good part. The bad part, it was all the way out in the freaking Washington territory. So he had to come all the way out here on a wagon train. And the Kirk homestead is in Elmira, Washington. Okay? And every single Kirk that's ever lived in the United States is buried in this state. Either living in this state or buried in this state. Every single one. Right? Just a couple years ago, I put my dad in the ground here. He's 93. Right out there at Tacoma National Cemetery. All right. Now, when people say, all the time when I travel around the country, I'll be down in Vegas in a couple of weeks for SHOT Show, and I was like, why are you still in Washington? What are you still doing there? You guys hear that? What are you still doing there? All right. Well, how many of you have multiple generations in this state? Okay. So I'll say to all of you, where are we supposed to go? Where are we supposed to go? It's our state. And so if you're going to stay here, just make me one promise. Because, yeah, we got a long fight in front of us. We got a huge fight in front of us. It's an uphill battle. I mean, you guys can see the math. You know the math. Okay? It's a long uphill battle. But I would rather stay here and die on my feet than stay here and live on my knees. And that's what I want from all you guys. So whatever you got to do, fight. All right? Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.